Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is your neighborhood friendly Oxhorn, and today we are revisiting the idea of supply lines for Fallout 4. I did an entire video on supply lines, and it was well received. People enjoyed it, but I wanted to touch on the topic again now that there are many more settlements in the game, and just to clarify a few reasons for the way I do supply lines the way I do. So here we are in Sanctuary, and you can see my provisioners heading on out to their respective settlements. Oh, look, there's Finch. What's his name? Jake Finch. Oh, guess he's going to Finch Farm. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you 4 different ways to organize your supply lines for your settlements. Now, these are completely cosmetic. They have absolutely no effect on your game whatsoever, as long as every single settlement you have is connected to one other settlement that is connected to all other settlements. Then you're going to have access to all of the scrap, all of the food, absolutely everything from each of the different workshops. Now, just to clarify what this means, this doesn't mean that you're going to be able to go to your workshop and place a globe and then fast travel to another settlement, go to that settlement's workshop, and see that same globe. That's not how it works. Now, you do have access to the globe for scrap from your settlement workshop, but the items themselves do not physically teleport from workshop to workshop. Here's the first supply line option. This one's a little bit messy, but it's the one that I chose for my game, although mine is slightly altered. And what this does is it takes one settlement, in this case the Mechanist's Lair, and it makes it the central hub for the entire Commonwealth. Every settlement in the Commonwealth sends one provisioner to and from your central hub. If you choose this method, your supply lines are still going to work. Every settlement is going to be connected. You'll be able to use resources from any settlement's workshop at any other settlement workshop. And really the only downside is it does make your map look a little messy when you turn on Show Supply Lines. But there are a couple of reasons you might want to do this. One of which is role-playing reasons. That's why I chose it in my game. In my game, my Mechanist's Lair is the central warehouse for the Commonwealth Minutemen. If you check out my Mechanist's Lair video, you see that I've got all sorts of sorting machines there, and crates, and barrels filled with water and food, and provisioners constantly coming in and out. This is where my Minutemen store all their goods and sort them and process them before sending them out to all of the other settlements in the network. So that's why I chose to have it there. Another reason to have a setup like this is, let's say that you had all of your supply lines go to your primary player home settlement, like Sanctuary. Maybe that's where your player home was. Well, if you have all your supply lines pointing to the same settlement, then you're going to see your provisioners a whole lot more often. It's going to make your settlement feel more active, like more people are there. Another good reason to do something like this is if you want to see more of your provisioners when you're out and about in the game playing. In this example, see, all of the lines are converging right here. This means that I'm going to see a ton of provisioners all around the road between Bunker Hill and County Crossing, right? Because they're on their way to the Mechanist's Lair. Let's say you spend a lot of time in downtown Boston and you want your provisioners to be constantly going in and out of it, then maybe you would want to choose Bunker Hill or Hangman's Alley as your central location, as the hub for your star network like this. This is a great one for role-playing because it really makes your game feel like, as the General of the Minutemen, you have really conquered the Commonwealth, or as a Sentinel on the Brotherhood of Steel, you're taking the Commonwealth over for the Brotherhood of Steel, or whatever. Now, a note on DLC settlements. When I had conflicting results. When I did a supply line from my Mechanist's Lair to a Far Harbor settlement, I did see a line on the vanilla map coming all the way to my Far Harbor settlement. And then when I went to Far Harbor, I did see a line coming from the Commonwealth to that Far Harbor settlement. But when I tried supplying settlements to other settlements in Far Harbor, the lines did not appear on my map. Similarly, I can't find any lines going to or from Nuka World, despite the fact that I do have the supply lines active. I have access to all of the resources at the Nuka World Red Rocket, and for some reason I just don't see the lines on the map. I have the Boston Airport grayed out because you don't actually have access to this as a settlement. You really only use this settlement if you go on with the Brotherhood of Steel quests, so it doesn't support food. But there are mods out there that you can install to make this work like a real settlement. But I excluded it from this image for now. This one is probably the most complicated one, and it's based on community hubs. This is going to be a good one for someone who's role-playing a really realistic Commonwealth. Like, the distance between all of these settlements is so great that people rarely visit each other. And that's actually something you notice if you browse some of the terminals in the game, is that they refer to other areas in the game as if they are far-flung afield, as if it would be really hard to travel and visit them. So this would be a layout for people who want to stay within their own little neighborhood hub, with one provisioner connecting all the hubs. So the yellow lines connect green settlements to the orange hubs. The purple lines connect hubs to other hubs. So for example, Abernathy Farm is the center of the hub for this northwest section of the map, and it's connected to the Grey Garden hub through the Starlight Drive-In, which is then connected to the Greentop Nursery hub via Covenant, which is then connected to the Outpost Zimonja hub via Ten Pines Bluff. The idea behind this is that neighbors are going to trade most often with close neighbors. So for example, there are only 2 members of this hub up here, Ten Pines Bluff and Outpost Zimonja, because they're really the only ones close enough to each other. The Starlight Drive-In is right out here in the middle, completely isolated. I had to make it a bit of a stretch to connect it to the Grey Garden hub. The Grey Garden hub is connected to the Somerville Place hub between Hangman's Alley and Egretours Marina, which is then connected to the Vault 88 hub between Somerville Place and the Murkwater construction site, which is then connected to the Warwick Homestead hub between the Jamaica Plain and the castle. So in short, this one connects all of the settlements that are close to each other in a tight-knit little hub, and then tries to connect the hubs together to complete the supply line chain by connecting the closest points between neighboring hubs. This one I'm calling the Constellation. The goal of this is to be as efficient as possible by connecting only the shortest route between each settlement. This means that your settlers are going to complete their trips in a shorter period of time, between the Red Rocket and Abernathy Farm multiple times per day, and the same with Sanctuary. This is kind of like the best of both worlds. You still have neighborhoods that are organically connected simply because they're so close to each other. And if you happen to have a player home in a settlement that is really close to its neighbor, then you'll see that provisioner quite often, especially if you're close to 2. Red Rocket Truck Stop is going to see its provisioners from Sanctuary and Abernathy Farm multiple times per day, which will give the illusion of a lot of activity at that particular settlement. This also more accurately depicts how the settlers would go about their journey as well, because it tends to follow the roads. This, for example, Starlight Drive into Grey Garden, there's a road that just goes all the way down here, and they'll follow the railroad tracks all the way through towards Hangman's Alley and down to here. I also took roads into consideration when making connections in otherwise confusing places. So for example, Somerville Place and the Murkwater construction site are closer to each other than Egretours Marina and Jamaica Plain is, but the provisioner would have to walk through all of these marshes to get to Murkwater construction site, whereas there's a road that directly connects the Egretours Marina to Jamaica Plain. So this was the clear choice in that regard. Now this was tricky because there's a road between the Warwick Homestead and Jamaica Plain, and there's no road between Spectacle Island and the Warwick Homestead. So you'd think, since Spectacle Island is already connected to the castle, I would rather connect this to Jamaica Plain. But I figure if we already have provisioners going by boat to get from the castle to Spectacle Island, then I'm sure it would be much easier for them to go by boat from Spectacle Island to the Warwick Homestead as well. Finally, what is probably the most neat and orderly is what I'm calling the circle. This connects all of the settlements together in one big loop that skirts the perimeter of the Commonwealth. It's not the most practical one. You've got really long supply lines, like from the castle to Nordhagen Beach. and from Starlight Drive-In to Outpost Simonja. But it does work. Every single settlement is connected to every other settlement. And this is going to make your lines much more neat. Again, there's no real practical reason to do this. But if you want a nice pretty circle on your map, when you look at your supply lines, this is the one for you. Bear in mind that if you do one like this, you're going to be seeing your provisioners a whole lot less. Look at this. There are no provisioners coming through downtown Boston at all. They skip the downtown of the city completely. And then up here, near the ruins of CIT, there are no provisioners coming in and out. They just completely bypass it. So really, you're going to be seeing your settlers a whole lot less if you choose something like this, because they're going to be circling around the outskirts of the Commonwealth. But admittedly, it does look very nice on the map. So this is what my supply lines look like, and yes, every time I show these off, I get lots of comments from people saying, wow, Oxhorn, what a mess. And that's because I kind of put this together before I knew what I was doing and before I knew what I wanted. You'll notice that over here at Sanctuary, obviously, since Sanctuary was the first settlement you get, this is where I started with my supply lines, and I started doing a little bit of the star. And then as I started getting other settlements, I didn't really care about supply lines or really working on them, so I just grabbed a settler at that settlement and sent it to a nearby one just to make the connection. But when Automatron came out, I fixed it by creating a robot at the Mechanist's Lair for every single settlement in my game. So now the Mechanist's Lair works as a central hub, sending out robots to every single settlement in the Commonwealth, which means that I run into them all the time. And here we are. Yeah. The problem with this is that they're gonna get stuck. I like seeing them all, but man, they get stuck. Like this guy. What are you doing, Nuka World? Oh, man. He's stuck back here. I guess I should put a ramp, huh? No, but that wouldn't change this. I'd have to put a ramp here, and then a ramp here, just to make sure they didn't get stuck. I don't know. It's an imperfect science, ladies and gentlemen. But I just really like being able to see all of my robot provisioners walking around and doing their thing, going from settlement to settlement, going from here to there. I installed a mod that changes the Brahmin into an iBot simply because the Brahmin would get stuck in my Mechanist's Lair all the time, and it was so annoying. I would have piles and piles of Brahmins stacked on top of each other, and they'd get stuck in these doorways because the packs on top of the Brahmin were way too tall. It was just absolutely annoying. So I installed that mod, and I like it so far. I don't know if it's lore-friendly, but it sure saves a whole lot of space, don't you think? Anyway, so there you go, ladies and gentlemen. There's my short little video on supply lines. Again, the way they work hasn't changed or anything with any of the DLCs. And this is completely optional. All you got to do is make sure that each of your settlements is connected to a network of all of them so that you can have access to the food and water at each of the settlements and the scrap in those workshops in settlement build mode. That's really it. But if you want to take it a step further and make them look interesting or provide some sort of role-playing reason behind what you're doing, well, then I hope what I've provided you today in this video comes in handy. Thanks for watching, ladies and gentlemen. Your views keep this channel alive. I really appreciate it. And leave a comment if you've got an idea or a suggestion in the comment section below. I read all the comments here on my channel, and I respond to the best ones. If you like what I do and you want to support me in a more personal way, consider becoming one of my patrons on Patreon. Patreon subscribers get access to a lot of really cool Oxhorn swag, or consider subscribing to my YouTube channel so that you never miss an update from your neighborhood-friendly Oxhorn. Anyway, thank you so very much for watching, ladies and gentlemen. I'll have a new video for you early tomorrow morning, and until then, have a great day.